Good afternoon. The Workers' Party's slogan for the general elections is "Make your vote count." The slogan calls into focus the overwhelming parliamentary supermajority held by the People's Action Party. There is a real risk of a wipeout of elected opposition MPs with 100% of the seats, the elected seats, in PAP hands at these general elections. We need elected Workers' Party MPs to be voted into Parliament so they can serve the public in Parliament and at the constituency through the Town Council. Elected opposition MPs strengthen our democracy and our political processes. As one of our candidates put it at her introduction a few days ago, and directed at our fellow Singaporeans, don't rely on someone else to vote for the Workers' Party. Make your vote count. I will now move to introduce the party manifesto for these general elections. Before doing so, let me share with my fellow Singaporeans and friends from the media a little background of the manifesto process. The manifesto team was set up by the party's Central Executive Committee in late 2018. The team comprised of Gerald Giam, He Ting Roo, and Leon Pereira. My colleague and friend Daniel Goh was also part of this team, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank him for the invaluable service he rendered to this committee. All the committee members, barring Daniel Goh, are present today with us. They consulted widely as they developed the manifesto, speaking to specialists, industry experts, fellow Singaporeans, and they also took in feedback from residents from Aljunied, GRC, and Hougang SMC, amongst other Singaporeans living in other constituencies. 3 of these committee members, as I've mentioned, will now go through the manifesto in the specific segments that they will speak on. Roo will talk about PMATs and women. Gerald will cover families and youth. And Leon will speak about our seniors. So let me hand over the floor first to my good friend, Roo.
Thank you, Pratam. We keep hearing about disruption, but are we truly prepared for it? Recent events have brought to light frailties within global supply chains and also within societies. We agree that we must put ourselves in a position to thrive in a post-COVID world. Our manifesto contains the proposals and ideas that we stand for, that we have, and will continue to champion in Parliament if given a chance to do so. We believe that these proposals will bring Singapore in the right direction towards overcoming our challenges. While our long-term aim is to be ready to form an alternative government, we need to build up to get into this position. Our manifesto does not have all the answers, but no one has, not even the PAP. But we believe that our proposals are what Singapore needs. Our vision for Singapore is one of a citizenry that is unable to achieve their dreams, with children being equipped with the right tools to fulfill their potential and ambitions, with social policies that support hardworking families. We want to see a dynamic economy which is competitive and resilient against disruptive forces, while providing dignified jobs for our workers. We must work together to build the home that we want by tackling the cost of living, having robust care systems, and livable communities. And finally, we must have robust political, governance, and defense institutions to protect us, while embracing a diversity of views to take us forward. The current economic climate is fraught with uncertainty, and workers, PMETs, and entrepreneurs alike need support. We have various proposals to cover this, some of which address the need for our Singapore core, our local enterprises, specifically SMEs, to grow and thrive. Countries like Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, with their Mittelstand enterprises, have shown the way in which an economy can flourish with these enterprises and have them expand successfully internationally. We should form an Exim Bank to finance SME growth globally, with a focus on financing for digitalization and Industry 4.0 projects for local firms. Some attention could also perhaps be paid to developing green technology as a new growth area. Commercial and industrial rents should also be kept manageable, and policies be put in place to minimize the rental surges that we have seen in the past. Women hold up half the sky, yet is this reflected in our policies? While progress has definitely been made over the last decade in terms of improved protection for women, much remains to be done. Disproportionately, women end up bearing the burden of household and care duties and are not given the support framework that they require. This can range from higher premiums paid for CareShield Life to ensuring making sure that mothers do not face discrimination and are supported at the workplace or upon re-entry into the workforce. The gender wage gap exists, and we believe that better data and understanding of the scale of this problem is the first step towards addressing it. Only then can we come up with measures to give companies assistance to tackle the gap. This does not just increase, it just doesn't increase costs, but instead has the effect of giving wider access to the talent pool and better attract and retain capable workers. This can also be supported by enacting anti-discrimination laws that would prohibit discrimination against the basis of race, gender, and age. We must also acknowledge the unpaid labor carried out by caregivers in our society. These may not normally be included in traditional measures of GDP, but are crucial for the functioning of an efficient economy. In view of this, we must equalize childcare subsidies for all women, regardless of their employment status, and also continue to give caregivers the support that they require. Thank you.
Families are the bedrock of our society. We want a Singapore in which families can grow and thrive. Vulnerable families must not be left to fend for themselves. We must not shift the burden of poverty within the pool of the poor in the name of self-reliance. We must tackle the cost of living for hardworking families who struggle to keep up in a never-ending rat race to make ends meet. Our proposals to strengthen families have three broad thrusts. 1, containing the cost of living. 2, ensuring adequate social protections. And 3, making Singapore a great country to grow up in. First, on the cost of living. The Workers' Party opposes the government's current plans to increase the GST to 9%. This tax hike will be yet another burden on hardworking families who are already struggling with a high cost of living in Singapore. There are alternative sources of revenue that need to be more thoroughly considered before increasing the GST. A deeper public discussion on alternative sources of revenue must be undertaken. For example, revenue shortfall can be met by tapping no more than a fifth of the approximately $15 billion per year in land sales that the government typically collects, or by increasing the maximum net investment returns contribution from 50% to 60%. These will not reduce the principal amount of the reserves, and our reserves will continue to grow, albeit at a slower pace. Next, on social protections. COVID-19, together with technological disruption and global events, will lead to higher rates of redundancies, with middle-aged to older workers being the most affected. This heightens the insecurity facing many workers. The Workers' Party proposes a redundancy insurance scheme to ease financial pressure on workers who have been made redundant while complementing existing programs for retraining and re-employment. Under our proposed scheme, a retrenched worker would receive a payout equivalent to 40% of their last drawn salary for up to 6 months, with a cap of $1,200 per month. To fund this scheme, the average worker will pay approximately $4 per month into an employment security fund, with matching contributions from employers. Redundancy insurance will not only ease the immediate financial pressure that retrenched workers face, but it will also provide an automatic stabilizer to the economy during a downturn. Next, on children and youths. Class sizes in Singapore public schools are around 40% larger than in other rich countries. The government has acknowledged that small class sizes help students. We need to look no further than GEP and IP classes, which already have significantly smaller class sizes. We call for the average form class size to be lowered to 20 students. Academically weaker students should be the first to benefit from this change. We propose a shared parental leave scheme that entitles parents to 24 weeks of government-paid leave to be shared between mothers and fathers as they choose, but with a minimum of 4 weeks to the father. Shared parental leave supports fathers who want to partake in the joys of parenthood and allows them the flexibility to take on greater childcare responsibilities. This scheme would replace existing maternity and paternity leave entitlements. Our other proposals to support families include improving access to university places for Singaporeans, providing more equitable funding for schools, creating more infant care centres, and improving access to enrichment programs for low-income children. Beyond bread and butter issues, we also tackle various governance and existential issues in our manifesto. The current voting age should be lowered to 18 years old. Enfranchising younger Singaporeans will empower them to meaningfully participate in public life earlier and lend their voice to public conversations and ensure that a longer-term view is reflected in national political choices. We need to implement media reform to enable a more thriving democracy. The Newspaper and Printing Presses Act should be amended to abolish the government's power to require a class of management shares in newspaper companies. These shares have 200 times the voting power of ordinary shares and could unduly influence the independence of media companies in favor of the government. The Broadcasting Act should be amended to do the same for broadcast companies. We need to do more to mitigate climate change. The average sea level around Singapore coast has been rising steadily due to global warming. Commitment to climate change mitigation is crucial and necessary. We propose targeting a minimum of 10% of our energy to come from renewable sources by 2025, which will put us on the path of sustainable development. We also need to curb the use of plastics. Styrofoam should be banned where there are other eco-friendlier alternatives. There should be a nationwide public education campaign to raise awareness of the effects of single-use plastics vis-à-vis other more sustainable alternatives. We need to plan and take action to solve the challenges facing us now, rather than kicking the can down the road for future generations to deal with. Thank you.
I'd like to speak about the parts of our manifesto that relate to the problems of seniors. So that is one segment that is expected to increase as a share of the population. I think this is well known. More and more Singaporeans as we move forward into 2030, 2040, 2050 are going to be age 65 and above. The society will get older, the median age will get older. And many seniors do face a number of challenges in a high-cost society like Singapore, particularly when you consider that costs and inflation could increase after the introduction of GST. Many seniors are on fixed incomes from CPF Life, for example. Many seniors work part-time and receive small incomes associated with part-time work. Many seniors live by themselves with no incomes at all. For example, the number of zero-income households in 2019 was 13%, the majority of whom are households populated by people aged 65 and over. The median household income of over $9,000 drops to about $8,000 if you include those zero-income households. And if you look at the household expenditure survey, a significant percentage of households actually report expenditure that is higher than their income. So all these are challenges that seniors will have to face. And in our manifesto, we look at a few areas where we have constructive proposals to address these problems and address these pain points. And I'll talk about a few of these areas, and gradually we will release actually all of our ideas that are geared towards specific segments, including seniors. So firstly on CPF, our proposal is to uncage the CPF, to lower the CPF payout eligibility age and CPF life eligibility age to 60, and also to allow seniors to obtain more funds in their CPF balances by introducing a special dividend. The GIC basically invests CPF funds, and we call for CPF members to be given transparency in the nature and performance of their money. The government should notify members about the 10-year moving average difference between investment returns of GIC and the net interest payable to CPF members for their balances. And to boost retirement adequacy, a third of this difference, where it is positive, should be returned as part of a special dividend to CPF members into their special accounts. Next, I think our thrust in our recommendations for seniors is to ensure that seniors are well integrated, well respected, are employable, can find meaningful jobs with dignity. And Ru has touched on our call for anti-discrimination laws based on gender, race, age, and also disability status. And I think such laws will provide greater clarity to both employers and employees, and allow companies to be very, very clear about what they should be doing, what they should not be doing, and we hope will aid the cause of reducing discrimination against these vulnerable groups, including seniors, because ageism is obviously a very important part of such employment discrimination where it is found. And when we have filed parliamentary questions about this issue, we find that a lot of the complaints of discrimination tend to be oriented around age as well. Next, we call for free public transport for seniors that would encourage low-income seniors to go into employment, those are the borderline. So our proposal is really for public transport on trains and buses to be made free for Singaporeans aged over 65 and for all Singaporeans with disabilities, for all PWDs. This should be funded from the budget as well as using all available monies from the Public Transport Fund. Though concessionary fares are now already available to senior citizens and PWDs, free public transport would lower the financial burden. And also, seniors thinking of applying for casual or part-time jobs may be deterred by the cost of public transport to and from work. This measure could encourage more seniors and PWDs at that borderline level of potential income to take up work instead of remaining unemployed at home, thus boosting our labour force participation rate. Enhancing the employability of seniors and PWDs is a crucial priority for Singapore. It supports inclusiveness and active ageing and is useful for our economy. Next, on healthcare, of course, the cost of healthcare is always a worrying factor for seniors. We have recommendations to make medicines more affordable. Many seniors actually look to go to places like JB to buy certain types of medicine, such as over-the-counter drugs. There are differences between the cost of drugs in Singapore and other regional countries. We feel that we can do more to consolidate drug purchases across all of the institutions that are making these purchases. And some of those proposals are outlined in a little bit more detail in our manifesto. More can be done in terms of this procurement consolidation. And in addition to that, more can be done to register generic drugs. Right now, aside from tracking the use of cheaper generic drugs, the government we are calling for should also step up efforts to promote the registration of generic drugs in the public healthcare system. It's not all global generic drug manufacturers register and import their drugs in Singapore, and this has the potential to lower the cost of medicines. Lastly, and very, very crucially, is the issue of HDB lease decay, which has prompted a great deal of debate in this country about policy solutions, as well as some policy announcements from the government. Workers' Party has released a very detailed consultation paper outlining and broaching some possible policy solutions to this problem as it impacts Singaporeans. Why does HDB lease decay matter? Well, if resale prices are falling, if liquidity is weak in the HDB resale market, that affects seniors' ability to use their nest egg for retirement, to monetize their HDB flats so as to downsize to a cheaper flat. And to soak up the demand for HDB flats, raising the number of permanent residents is not a solution that most of us would support to a very substantial degree. So in our paper, we have floated a number of ideas. I won't go through them in very great detail, but broadly speaking, we have proposed a universal lease buyback that would become available at year 70 of the life of a HDB flat and would provide some means of price support to prevent a catastrophic price collapse of HDB flats in the resale market. The buyback formula should be devised to be fair to the buyer and to the state. Some of the acquired flats could then be rented out to Singaporeans at rates in between commercial rates and HDB public assistance rental rates. This would provide more housing options for Singaporeans who do not wish to own a flat lease at certain points in their lives. And also, and lastly I should say, one of our recommendations recognizes the need for orderly urban renewal. The government should consider launching more SIRS exercises and providing a SIRS scheme which does not require a proxy relocation site, using instead BTO and balanced flats for relocation. Thank you.
Our manifesto will be uploaded onto our website after this session. We invite Singaporeans to read it and to share our vision of a dynamic and caring Singapore. If COVID-19 has taught us anything, it is that Singapore will have to deal with challenges which are new, unexpected, and even sudden. No single political party, however powerful, can find all the right answers from within itself. It can also get things wrong from time to time. Singapore will need more perspectives than less, and breaking away from the past may be our best formula for the unknowns that lie ahead. From women to parents, PMETs, youths, and caring for seniors, new ideas are needed. The Workers' Party has contributions to make. We have good people who are committed to Singapore's success. Let us move ahead, empowering Singaporeans of all political persuasions. Make your vote count. Vote for the Workers' Party. See you on nomination day. Thank you.